Hello, everyone. They brought me up here because Ty had to step away for a few minutes, so you're stuck with Carmen Sandiego once more. So I want to say thank you to Tom and Dean for that talk. I enjoyed that, although that sound jump scared the heck out of me backstage, I'm not going to lie. So in our next session, AP reporter Sarah Parvini sits down with Unity CEO Matt Bromberg, marking his first year in the role for an exclusive fireside chat. They'll explore what's next for the gaming industry, from emerging monetization strategies and changing player behavior to the role of AI in game development and the expanding potential of XR. So welcome to the stage, Sarah and Matt. Excellent.
Hello.
Hello? Hello. Great. Well, guess we have a nice setup here.
Yeah, it's very comfortable.
Very comfy.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, my name is Sarah Parvini. I'm a reporter for the Associated Press here in Los Angeles. I cover tech, and oftentimes that includes gaming. And I feel pretty lucky to be sitting across from Matt Bromberg, the CEO of Unity. I don't think that needs much introduction.
Thank you for having me. Hi. Good afternoon, everybody. Everybody okay after a long day here?
I know, right?
All right.
Yes, bring the energy.
I'm not gonna. I threatening backstage to make you stand up and do jumping jacks. You know how sometimes people do that. It's not my vibe, but I could have done it.
Just like a group icebreaker for everyone.
Not gonna do it.
No, we won't do that. Thank you so much for taking some time to chat. I really appreciate it.
I'm pleased to be here.
Yeah. I think, we can start off with a pretty basic question. I think most people here know what Unity is, but why don't you tell me a little bit more about Unity's reach today and where the company is mainly focused at present?
Yeah. So we, as you say, we've had a long history in the games business, and we're really excited. I'm about a year into this new job, and just feeling pretty amazing about the transformation of the company over the last year. We as a company have always been associated with sort of being the dominant engine, not only in mobile, but for folks who want to reach across platforms. And that position is still, incredibly important to us. We have 70% of the top mobile games in the world are built on Unity. The majority of the high quality VR and AR applications in the world are built on Unity. At the recent Independent Game Awards, 9 out of 9 of the winners were built on Unity. So it very broadly distributed, very loved platform. But over the past year, we've been working really, really hard to, in as humble a way as possible, to really earn that trust and that position back, and to continue to deliver on stable performance software that helps people innovate and just really focus on delivering value, and making sure that our software is stable and that we kind of reconnect with our community and our customers. We drifted away a little bit from that, so we're feeling very good, about that.
Yeah. So based on this unique position that the company has in the gaming space, would you call it more of an ecosystem company?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Unity, which is so exciting about it, and is that when we do well when the ecosystem does well, and that everyone is better off when we're doing a good job, right? So whether, if Unity is working properly and delivering what it needs to deliver, then developers are happy, they're able to make better software. On the advertising side of our business, if we're delivering more users and helping those companies acquire better users, then that's better. So the ecosystem is great when we're great. And so what's been really fun, especially about the last year, is trying to tap back into that.
Yeah.
And reconnect in that way in the spirit of partnership and the ecosystem. Like, we're a long-term participant here. We're going to be in gaming forever. We're not passing through. We're not here just to kind of draw money out of the, from folks. So, yeah, we're a platform and an ecosystem partner.
Yeah. You touched on the idea of building trust. In the past, you've talked about wanting to build a fundamentally different company since taking this role on, and you've also mentioned that you do want to reconnect in that kind of way with customers. Can you talk to me a little bit more about some of the changes that you have made at the company to enable that type of change?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really boils down to ensuring that we as a full organization all over the world are authentically curious and interested in what people need, what they really need, and then work as hard as we can to deliver those things. And I know that sounds sort of obvious or maybe even foolish, it's so obvious, but it's not typical, and we had gotten away from it. And so what the most important piece about it is just not just me, but everybody is spending more time with our community, with customers, trying to figure out how we can add the most value fastest. And that's a transformation that takes a while, but we're already seeing, and I guess also I should add sort of delivering those things in a different way. Like, I think if you're authentically interested and curious, then your tone changes too. And I know that also sounds maybe like a nuance, but it's not. If you're really trying to deliver on those things, I think folks feel differently about you, and then you're able to learn more. And if you turn it into action, that's how you build trust. Like, I ask you what you need, you tell me, I deliver it to you. I do that a few times. Pretty soon, like, we have a relationship. You trust me, and that's true for people. It's true for companies, and that's the road that we've been on.
So if we extrapolate that out a little bit, how do you work to affect that type of change or growth broadly within the games industry or the games business?
Yeah, I think it's the two things are tied together, because what is good for the ecosystem and good for our customers is also good for us, right? And if those things are lined up, then you're in this really kind of happy, you're in this really happy place. And so what we're really focused on is, as I said, making our software stable and performant. How do we add features and leverage AI to make it easier and faster for people to build games so they can spend more time innovating? How do we work really hard to use what we know about gaming consumers to help builders and developers of games optimize and build live services? So just like the core meat and potatoes of make better games. If I'm operating a game that's in live service, make that better and more effective, and then help people acquire more players into those games, and focusing on the meat of that.
Shifting gears a little bit, just from your purview, based on the position that your platform is in, how would you describe sort of the state of the video game marketplace today?
Yeah, I don't know what the conversation's been here today. I often think when we get together as a community, there is some, there's often some, some skepticism about the growth of the business. I think we talk a lot about headwinds and things that are difficult in the market, and I accept that there have been some very difficult things lately in the market, but there are also some pretty spectacular things. And by and large, I'm extraordinarily optimistic about the growth and innovation that's taking place in our market. And I think for all the things that you could identify are challenges, you could find three things that are going extraordinarily well. I mean, even just the gentleman who was up speaking, Tom was speaking here 2 minutes ago, like, there are new platforms coming into the market, right? Tom's, the Switch 2, we've got new software, there's a lot of innovation. The rise of independent game makers is unmistakable. The top Steam charts last year and this year are full of independent game makers. That's not been true in the past. Some of the changes that are taking place and the energy around the platforms and the opening up of the Google and the Android and iOS platforms, these are all going to create growth and innovation and are signs that the market is really kind of healthy and vibrant. So, and I really feel that way about it.
What about the mobile gaming space? You touched on Steam and some of these other things. I'm curious, what types of change or growth or development have you seen in that area?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be I think there'll be a massive impact. The recent changes that look like they're on the horizon for iOS, appeals notwithstanding, it's going to have a really positive impact on the mobile game business. I don't think that it's going to change the major positions on the field. Like, the big platform providers are still going to be the big platform providers, but it just became a much more profitable business to be in, right? If you were paying 30% and now you're paying something significantly less than 30% over time, it's not zero, because you've got to pay for transactions and you've got to probably offer customers a discount to go off platform. But it rarely happens in a business that business just becomes fundamentally more profitable out of the blue. Again, incredibly positive thing for this market. And what's going to happen is that those developers and publishers are going to put that money back into growth. Some portion of that money they will put back into growth. That's what we all want to do. We want to grow. And that's going to create vibrancy in the market as well. So I do, and by the way, I think that it's also true in the mobile market, the rise of like really interesting independent games and with independent thinking and new gameplay modalities is something you've really seen over the last year, 2 years, and it's incredibly encouraging. And again, shows, I think, that we're in a pretty healthy place. The issues notwithstanding, it is more and more expensive to acquire players, and discoverability is hard, and it has become more expensive to make games, to some degree. But also, the tools that we're getting that are coming to the market are helping counteract and counterbalance those trends.
So how do you address some of those challenges? The increasing difficulty of reaching players or customers, the amount of money it takes to make a game. How do you approach this sort of shift?
I mean, we're a really proud tools provider. What I mean when I say that is it's our job to help developers make better things more quickly and more efficiently. So we feel like the best way we can help is by improving the nature of the tools we provide, both in terms of the on the game creation side and also on the game marketing side. So, I'll give you just a perfect example. In July, we just start for Unity 6.2, which is the next version of Unity, we just put into beta. And it contains two biggish things. Like, one is the first integrated use of AI inside our tool, specifically designed to make it faster and easier to use the tool. So it should pick up routinized tasks for you, things that are time consuming when you've got crash indicators or other issues. It helps solve them, like those sorts of things, like making it faster and easier to make games. Those things help. We're also providing a diagnostic tool that helps folks who are making big live service games identify and diagnose crashes and improve game performance. Like, those are the kinds of things that a good tools provider should do. But also that creates more time and energy to bring innovation when you make it easier to make those games, and then if we help people acquire more users more efficiently, that creates advantages for people. So that's just what we're trying to do. We're trying to help the ecosystem and help developers by making better products.
So with all of this in mind, what are some other models perhaps that are, taking shape, that you're starting to see take shape, that are helping in this space, whether that is through the creation of a game, developing a game, or publishing a game, or whatever the case may be, something that is up and coming that has caught your attention?
I'm an enormous believer in the future of AR in particular, and also ultimately of VR. And I know that we had some false starts around VR. I think both will play a meaningful role. I do think that what we're seeing in AR, we're right on the cusp of a massive AR explosion. Right? So the form factor of glasses combined with the size and weight of battery life connected to voice AI, which is the thing that unlocks that form factor, we're headed right into that space. And there's going to be an explosion of applications that are built around the idea that I'm looking through a clear glass, but there's a kind of enhanced application layer that helps me understand things about the world and do things better. Like that is, I mean, that's already here. I don't even think that counts as an insight. It's going to be really big. I also think, and that will be most of our time, because I think we like to spend most of our time in the world. I do also think we're going to get better at creating applications, and we're already getting better at immersive applications inside VR. And I know that's taken a while, but I think AI is the thing that is ultimately going to unlock those into mass consumer platforms. And so one of the things that we think a lot about at Unity is how can we be sure that whatever the new platform is, that we're highly optimized on that platform so that our developers can publish to it and develop to it on day one. And that's one of the things we're focused on.
Well, you touched on AI a little bit. I think the question that a lot of folks have here is just really about like how people are going to be making games years from now, not tomorrow, but 5 years out, 10 years out. I'm curious if you think AI does play a role in that specific space.
Yeah, I think it's going to play a role immediately and 5 years out. It's one of the interesting things about AI in the video game space, and I don't know what your guys' experience of this is, but I would say that in general, when I talk to customers, there's much less use of AI in video game creation among big companies, big-ish companies, those with reasonably sized businesses, probably than almost any other code-based activity in the world, right? I think we're significantly less penetrated. And I know there's still a lot of consternation about AI in the game space, but it remains the fact that there aren't a lot of big folks who are using it in any meaningful way. And I think the reason that is because those tools, the AI tools, especially the Gen AI tools, but others, are not connected to workflows in any real kind of basic way. So especially at scale, when you're making a game, you're really connected to the process of how that game is made, and you have a set of tools, and you use those tools. And the AI tools are not connected; they're not wired into those workflows, and so it doesn't necessarily speed your process in many cases to use them. And so the version, what we're shipping in 6.2 that I just mentioned before is really trying to take some best of breed products that are out there, Gen AI products and others, and build them directly into the workflows of the Unity editor so that you can stay in context. The AI is context aware about your project. You can stay and work inside the same windows that you're working in, and they're tied directly into your workflows. And we believe that is the pathway through which these tools will become more adopted, more deeply adopted. I also believe, by the way, and I know there's a lot of consternation about it in our industry, having spent 25 years making games, I feel pretty confident saying that the vast majority of games companies will use the efficiencies that they gain through AI to make more games. I believe that is the primary impact that AI will have. I think if we can make games faster and more efficiently, then game companies will make more games, and they'll have more time and cycles to spend on innovation. And I don't say that because, I'm a Pollyanna, and I think all technology is good, and when I have my head in the sand. I'm saying it because I spent a lot of years making games and working at these kinds of companies. I can tell you that what happens is you kind of get to the end of the year and you think, okay, how much money do we have next year to spend on making new stuff? And we want to make as much of that as we can because that's the lifeblood of our company. It's the lifeblood of our industry. If you can put more irons in the fire because you're working more quickly, more efficiently, you will. You won't use that to contract by and large. So that is my view, having had the experience. I can't know what the future is going to hold, but it would be my bet that there's a lot more of that maybe than people realize.
And when you mention this sort of workflow integration for AI, are you able to maybe give a couple examples of what something like that would look like?
Yeah, so imagine that you're inside your editor and you're building a game, and you want to add graphical elements to the game, or you're getting an error and you want to understand what it is that's happening. Building Gen AI products directly into the editor and making our AI analytical tools aware of the context of your specific project allows you to ask questions and get solutions and get code written in a way that where you don't have to go off and use Copilot or whatever it is to ask. And by the way, Copilot doesn't understand the context of your project. So you remain in the editor, you get solutions in the editor, and when you create or import images, those images are rigged and animated and in your project. So it sounds like a small thing. I know, like the idea that a whole industry is sort of hung up on the idea of workflows sounds almost crazy. Like, what does that even mean? But the process of how we do things in our industry is incredibly important to the people who are participating in it, because these tend to be very large, especially at the higher end, group projects that a lot of people are working on, and the tools that you import need to work really well with the process and the people you have making a game. And so tying those two things more tightly together, we think will have a big impact.
So in an instance like that, does AI become sort of your coworker?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Nobody really knows the future, right?
You don't have a crystal ball?
I think it's important to think about that before you prognosticate, because I do think we like to believe we have and we generally have a very bad track record of knowing what's going to happen in the future. So I would just say that my mental model is, one of the things about Unity I think that's really special, and it's always been true historically, is our strength is our extensibility. It's an open platform, so that the way that Unity is designed is to allow you to import packages and things, whatever set of tools you need and want, and it could be your own bespoke setup to do what you need to do. And I think maybe sometimes historically we thought somehow that was a weakness, or we were embarrassed that it was so open. Actually, I think it's our greatest strength, and I think that'll be particularly true in the future when we believe that the Unity will become an orchestration layer, an assembly point, as it frankly already is. But in the AI future, we think that human beings will be assembling tools just as they do now. Those tools may be special purpose AI-driven agents in gameplay and sound and physics, whatever it is. But the act of building games is going to be about orchestrating tools on a platform so that you can bring together complex pieces and parts together into a whole, deep, compelling system. I mean, that is effectively what game making is about. I don't think that will fundamentally change. I think the nature of the tools will change, but the orchestration of these individual tools and pieces will remain. And so from our perspective, we just want to be able to keep providing a platform, and we want to keep modernizing that platform so that folks are comfortable using the tools and using Unity now and well into the future.
I want to go back a little bit to something that you mentioned at the top of our conversation. You talked about building trust, recreating culture, and one of the things you touched on was tone. So what does a shift in tone look like? You mentioned, of course, I give you a problem, you help me solve my problem, and then that builds trust. But what is that shift in tone look like, and why is that so important?
Yeah, I've always believed that we as people underestimate the impact of how important how we do what we do is. We tend to think about outputs and outcomes. My observation about being inside organizations is that the how is almost always more important than the what. You can run around trying to change individual whats, like, hey, make this, do that, or do it. A, there's no leverage in that if you're running a company, but B, what you want in any organization is you want the organization to authentically and organically come up with good answers reliably. And if you don't like the answers you're getting, the best thing you can do is go back to the beginning and think about, well, how do we do what we do? Like, how are we doing that? How do we talk to one another? How do we interact? How do we share data? How do we listen? And are there better ways we could do that? And that's how you make something better. You don't run around trying to fix it by telling people what to do. What you do is you take a step back and say, okay, what are the principles on which we agree here? Like, how do we do what we do? What kinds of outcomes do we want? And how are we going to align ourselves and organize ourselves to do it? And so the how is so critical. And I've always felt that it's underrepresented. And I think maybe it's because, in media and things, you have folks who lead companies. The takeaway is like, oh, I have brilliant ideas, or I tell people what to do, and I don't see really great companies operating that way. I think great companies operate because there's a common understanding of the how. And so for us, one of the places I started was around tone, because as we started in the beginning, part of how you signal that you want to change something, you want to be a certain way, is how you say it to someone, right? How you say it makes all the difference. If I say, hey, I really want to understand what you're saying, and you say, okay, but if I say it in a way that, you're like, no, you don't. You're not going to tell me.
Seems
right?
like you're just asking to ask the
You're
question.
just asking. So it's like the thing about companies and industries, they're just made of groups of human beings, right? So if your thing is, hey, I want to understand what customers really want, and I want them to understand that I really want to understand authentically, then how you say it turns out to be super critical. And I think that's just true of almost any human interaction.
I think that's probably true. We could all work on our tone, probably.
Well, especially now, like we're not winning the tone war in America. You know what I mean? Like, it's rough. I mean, I don't mean that like in a political way. I just mean forget the outcome you want. It's like, can we agree that tone is important, and how you do what you do is important, and how you organize your thoughts, and how you organize the series of steps to get to that. If you're attentive to those things, you tend to get better outcomes, and people feel better about it. And if you care about that, then it's worth spending time on.
So do you feel that even something as might come off as a small thing, right, tone, has that engendered the type of change that you've been hoping?
It has. I mean, it's interesting. Last week was my 1-year anniversary, and it was coincidental that this happened on this week, but I was on the phone all week with lots and lots of customers, and just checking in because as I said, if you don't ask, you can't know how you're doing, and it's just the pursuit of this never ends. So it's never exactly right, and there are always things you can do better. But by and large, the feedback we've been getting is, hey, a year ago, I was pretty despondent. I mean, literally, one of our biggest customers said I was utterly despondent. And I've been, a customer of Unity for 15 years, and I just couldn't have been in worse position. And over the course of the last year, everything feels different to me. So it's not all perfect yet, but I can see that you're working on the things that I need. Everyone I talk to is responding in the way I'd like them to respond to, and I just feel good about the direction you're going, and you should take your time and keep doing it. When I started a year ago, nobody was saying that to me, like literally nobody, and last week a lot of people did. And so that's just something you keep working at, and you're going to get out of sync sometimes, but a lot less if you ask a lot, And I know it seems like an obvious and almost a silly observation to say that if you stop to ask people what they need, and then you authentically care about it, and then you work really hard inside your company to prioritize those things, that then generally it goes better, right? It doesn't have to be perfect, but if you try, and then you just try to get better at it every day, and that is that is how organizations move forward. There are like these leaps and things. I guess they happen sometimes, but mostly it's about like getting a little better every day and creating a culture where that's important to people and they feel good about that. And that's like an end in and of itself, just falling in love with doing the right thing in the right way for the right reason. And then the chips fall where they may, right? And that's the culture change that we're working on.
So near term, long term, what is next for Unity?
We're just gonna, we're gonna keep building out our platform, and it's really important to us that I think to remind folks that this is a platform, and we're an ecosystem partner, and we want to help deeply both create better games more quickly and continue to help folks acquire players and grow their games more efficiently. We like to say internally that we're the only folks we know of in the world who are inside the entire life cycle of the game development process, from prototyping through building, through operating in live service, and then going out to acquire users or to monetize ad inventory you have inside your game. That full cycle, there's nobody else in the world that operates inside that full cycle. So what we need to learn how to do is deliver more benefits and more value based on the fact that we see all those things, so that we can take those insights back to developers and to the community to make what they do easier and better. And that's just what we're going to keep doing.
Well, I think we have ran exactly into our time.
Wow. It's impressive, actually. You have 17
We have
seconds
17
to say goodbye.
seconds, yeah, but
Thank you guys
thank
for
you so
taking the
much for
time to
taking
be
the
here.
time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.